Hello everybody, welcome back to Valley of the Mist Block of the Month. I'm Adriane Ritter.
And I'm Shelley McNeely.
And we're here with the April 2022 Block of the Month. And just for those of you in the Guild that are making these blocks for the exchange, these blocks are due at the May Guild meeting. Okay, so this block is only complicated because I'm trying to be frugal with fabric. It does have a partial seam, but don't be worried about it. It's easy. That's the easy part. Actually, it's all pretty easy. It's just explaining how to get everything here using my frugalness with fabric. So that said, if you decide not to be frugal, then I don't know how to tell you how much fabric you need on the strips. So that's where we're being frugal.
Right.
Okay, so Shelley's going to go over the fabric with you.
Okay, so this year we have a focus fabric. This is here for the Guild. This is just for the Guild. You can use, if you're not doing it for the Guild, you can use whatever you want for a focus fabric. Then for this particular block, you need 2 fabrics that coordinate with the focus fabric and a white. Okay, and of those, what we're going to do is we're going to call them a coordinating fabric 1 and coordinating fabric 2. So from coordinating fabric 1, we have pieces A and D. So piece A is 2 4-inch squares, and you cut those in half on the diagonal. And from piece D, you have 1 28-inch strip. And we'll talk about the width in a minute.
Okay, so that's the same fabric. It's just 2 different shaped pieces.
Right. So from coordinating fabric 2, we have pieces B and E. And piece B is 1 36-inch strip and 2 4-inch squares cut again on the diagonal. And then we have the white, which is piece C, and from that we need a 38-inch strip. Okay, about the width now. If you lay the 3 pieces together, the strip pieces together, the width of all 3 laying next to each other shouldn't be more than 5 3/4 to 6 inches wide. And then we have.
But we also want each strip to be at least 1.5 inches wide.
That's right.
Okay, so that it means your strips are roughly at 2 inches wide each, but they can vary some.
Right.
Okay. Just not a lot.
Right. And then we have piece F, which is the focus fabric, and that is a 3 3/4-inch square.
And this you can, after you cut it, you can kind of set aside because first thing we're going to do, this block is comprised of the focus fabric center and 4 rectangles that are exactly the same. And then so our big part of making this block is making these 4 rectangles. Okay. So the first thing you need to do after you cut your squares of A and E into triangles is I want you to take, you know what, I'm going to put up that diagram, okay, so that people can kind of see what we're doing. I probably should have had it up while you're talking about it. Okay, so here is the diagram. So this represents one of the rectangles, but they kind of go in a wheel around this focus fabric. And we're going to make these 2 parts, these 2 together, these 2, and then we're going to sew that center strip in there. So the first part we're going to do is parts D and E. But to do that, what I need you to do is take all 3 of your strips of fabric, and I don't know that Shelley mentioned, but it is a little bit easier on this one, but not required. If your fabrics, you can tell the front and back pretty easy.
Right.
Yeah, I won't even go into, actually in some ways you wouldn't even have to flip it the same if
I
didn't. But let's go with saying that. Okay, so I want you to stack them, one end of them and one corner all aligned, and we're just going to make a 45-degree cut at the end, and that's just to get it so that you are starting with the right angle for our creating our rectangles. So I'm just taking a square up ruler, really awkwardly, and I'm putting the 45-degree line down the edge so that I can get a 45-degree angle right here. That to me is the easiest way to do it. I know they have those marks on other rulers, but to me this is the quickest, easiest way. And if I have them all stacked up the same, it doesn't matter that they're different widths. I'm still going to get a 45-degree angle. Okay, got that. So for me, my pieces of A and C, which are my yellow and white, I can set aside. I don't need them right at this moment. What I need is my piece D and my piece E, which are these yellow rectangles. So what you're going to do, move this down just a little bit. Oops. Move it down here. So if I, oh, you know what, I'm going to also mention right now before we go ahead, whenever we're talking about setting the piece, the rectangle and pieces in front of you in what we're going to call like the standard position for this block, it's going to be in this order, with A at your bottom right and E at your top left. And you can tell later on the difference between the B and the D because we make a corner on the B, which the D doesn't have, okay? You'll understand later. Okay, so I want you to take your blue fabric, and I have it right side up, and I'm going to take a triangle of E, and I'm going to set it right here, and you can see it makes a nice little triangle. So I'm going to flip it over on there, and I'm going to sew it together. And when I flip it over, I actually want to align, I'm going to move the tip of E up a little bit so it extends past the end. And that, and I think we've talked about this before, where that cross is, that should hit where your needle is. So if you're not doing, I mean, if you're doing a precise 1/4 inch seam, that should be a 1/4 inch in, and this should roughly be a 1/4 inch over. But it kind of depends on the angle. On a 45-degree angle, it works. Later on when we do it, we might have a slightly different angle just from trimming, or in other pieces, the angle isn't always 45-degree. So it's really, you want to cross it where the needle comes down, and then when you flip it over, you don't have a gap. That's the trick. Okay, so we're going to sew this on. And now Shelley has already done that with a piece. And after you sew it on, and you're going to press it to the dark, whichever one's darker, then the next step that we need you to do is,
if I turn it
no, you're fine. You can have it like that. Or do you think it's fine. Okay. So you have this new triangle, this edge, nice edge here we made here, and then you're going to take a ruler and you're going to place it right along this other edge. And keep in mind, the edge of the triangle that we put against here is the hypotenuse, so that's the longer edge. And so now you're on one of the shorter edges, and you're going to cut this even right there, and then this piece is ready. You can set it aside, and now you're going to take your strip, and your strip is going to have a new 45-degree cut. And take one of your triangles, and I'm going to leave this up there so they can see the cut. And so it's going to go on the opposite side. See, so if we sewed them, if we kept going, you know, you could do the cutting later, but then you might actually not have enough. So that's why we're having you cut it off. You're going to place it on there, have it stick out a little bit the same way. But we're going to, on this strip, we're going to go back and forth. And that's just because we have these 45-degree angles, and we're using that over and over. And you can save fabric by doing it that way.
Right.
Okay? So we want you to make all of the E and D combined units. And then we want you to do the exact same thing with the A and B pieces. Okay, so we're going to go away and we're going to make all of those units. But the instructions for doing the A and B is the same thing at this point. When we come back, there's an extra step with that one, but we want you to make 4 ABs, 4 DEs.
Right.
Okay? All right. Okay, so we have made 4, not 2, 4 of the ED units and 4 of the AB units. And here is one of my AB units. Okay. But the first thing I want to talk about real quick is Shelly and I, as we were sewing these, we're thinking, you know, if these corner squares are the same size and we're putting these strips on there, why do I have these strip lengths different? And that's a good point, because when I was doing the test blocks, I had different widths of fabric. And this block really does depend on the width of your strip. So I'm going to say that we don't exactly know how long your strips need to be. So it would be a good idea when you start, especially with the B and the D strips, that you have them, you know, roughly, I'm being so vague, roughly the max you should need is 36 inches, which was one of them.
Right.
But really, they only need to be that long if the strip is wide. If the strip is 1.5 inches, then you can probably get away with the 28 inches. Right. So that I'm going to back up on that fabric requirement and say you need a longer strip if it's a wider strip. Okay? That's probably the best way to say this.
Yeah.
So I had mine, I think I had them pretty well measured. I know my white strip, I just had a complete just width of fabric strip because it was 38 is almost 40, so.
Close enough.
Yeah. But on the yellow, I probably had less. And I had, and this was my strip, this was my strip B, which we had said was how long?
36.
Right, and I still have a bit left.
But I had about the same amount.
Right, but my strip was only 1.5 inches wide. Mm-hmm. Okay, and my other one, which was supposed to be 28, and I don't have very much left. As you can see, I already pieced it because I thought I needed more fabric on there, and I didn't need to piece it. I could have managed, but this one is about 2 inches wide. So with our measuring requirements for these strips being no more than 6 and no less than 1.5, that means the widest strip you can get is 3 inches. So if you have a 3-inch strip, you probably should allow at least 38 inches. And that's because these pieces get really wide with the angle, that angle.
Right.
Okay. All right, now moving on. Okay, so now the next step of what we need to do. This is where, so piece AB makes a corner here. And to make that corner and to make sure the block is big enough, we need this rectangle to be about 5 inches wide. And so we're going to have you make a corner right now at 5 inches. So remember I talked about our standard orientation with A in the bottom right. And so there's A. And I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to measure 5 inches up from the bottom. And I'm going to cut off anything above that, and that's my corner. Okay, so if my strip were wider, I'd be cutting off more. It would be a bigger, more obvious corner. But as you can see, like in my sample block here, my corner, it was a little corner like that. But Shelly's,
mine are a little bit bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got it's on her blue one. You can see she's got like a bigger corner there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so but we need to make that corner. We don't have to do it on the other side because this one we are sewing right into the corner. We put this we put the next strip like goes right into the corner.
Okay.
Okay. Well, so Shelly is going to show us. She's already sewn.
Next step.
The next step. So the next step, you're going to take a DE unit and you're going to add the C, the white strip, to it. And when you do that,
see, we're adding it on here.
Okay, so she just, remember we've already made that 45-degree angle, and she adds it on there just like you did with the last pieces. But the next thing you do, don't trim at this point, just, you tell them.
Put the next one, butt it up to your needle if you your machine lets you do it that
like have
way.
your needle down and,
Yes.
and put it under so they
It's
kinda,
under like a 1/4 of an inch or so.
yeah.
And then sew the next one on.
Yeah, and so you're
it's all
kind of
sewn
overlapping them.
on the strip.
If you can't overlap them, that's okay. It
Yep.
just makes an extra cut,
Yep.
an extra piece of trimming that you have to do. But otherwise,
Just sew all 4 of those on your white strip.
okay, so we're going to do that, and then we'll be right back. All right, so I have, it's hanging off the edge here. I have a complete strip of all of my, remind me, this is EDC pieces, okay? So the next step is really easy, but it's, I want you to take and lay your strip in front of you like this. This was the first unit I sewed on, and it goes all the way to the end. And then I just need any straight edge ruler, and I'm going to use the edge of the next block. And I just line up with the edge of the next block, just a straight edge along here, and I'm going to trim right there. And I'm going to do that with the next one, which you can't see. But so you kind of need a big thing, but ignore the first block. You're going to do this edge. And what we're making here is this bottom edge of this block. Oh, I guess that's the wrong one. This bottom edge right here, okay? But this bottom edge isn't even exactly that. I mean, when you cut here, that is the bottom edge, but we're going to trim again, and you have extra. So don't worry, this is fine. If you want to trim off that little flag that sticks up, you probably need to do that eventually, but don't do any other trimming than that. Just make that cut. And then when you get to the last one, because you don't have a next piece to show you, Shelly's going to show you what you do on that one.
This is the last one. You need to cut your extra away. I'm assuming you have extra. Better have extra. You need to lay this. A square ruler would be, or
something with a 90 degree, 45 degree,
90 edge here.
Right.
And you need to put it up against, because we've pressed these already to the C.
To the strip, yeah.
And put it up in this corner where it is, your D, right?
Yeah.
D hits it, and cut that off straight down from here, like this.
And if you are a little bit off, don't worry. As you can see, like we were trying to make this strip about 5 inches wide, and she's already over. She's like 5 1/4. So you've got some extra there.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So you trim that off, and now you have 4 pieces of the EDC unit.
Right.
Okay. So remember, we wanted to put it in the standard orientation. So she's going to set that up there, the EDC.
Right.
And now we're going to take your BA unit.
Right here.
And this gets attached next.
Okay, so, I'm attaching, let me put it up higher, in case you can't see well. We're going to be sewing you have to line it up from the bottom edge.
Actually, it's from the top edge.
Oh, no? Is it?
Yeah, it's the top edge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're making the top edge even.
Oh, you're right, the top edge even. You're right, top edge even. Okay, hit here, flip it over.
And have the triangle piece, see, this is a straight edge, not that one, but the pointy piece, stick out that 1/4 inch, that part that hits under your needle, and then you'll get an even edge at the top.
Right.
And you're gonna.
We care about the top edge more, so we want the top edge to be as even as you can.
But keep in mind, there's still going to be a little bit extra on this unit we just made.
Right.
This one's sized closer to what we want,
true.
but this one we have a little extra, so we can trim.
Right.
And actually, I think the 5 inches is a little generous too. So don't worry, we'll be fine.
Yeah, because we don't care if they're a little wonky when we're done. So we're good.
Okay, so we're gonna trim all those strip that we made and end up with 4 of that section of CDE, and then you're gonna attach them to the AB unit, just like Shelly showed.
Right.
All right, and we'll come back and we should have 4 rectangles.
Yes.
They'll be separate, but they should be 4 rectangles. Okay. All right, so here are my 4 finished squares. Ignore what Shelly has over there for a second. The next step that we need you to do is take a look at your squares. As you can see, like this one extends down here. Don't worry about it, that's fine. And this is, and I have them in our standard orientation. So this one here, oh, that one looks fine. As you can see, I don't have a very defined corner. It just depends on how big that B strip was. I know one of these I needed to trim. Oh, this, all right, here. This one, you can see I'm gonna have to trim. I have a flag sticking up here. Basically, the only thing we need you to trim right now is look at this top and left edge and just straighten it. Right. You're not making it any size, you're just making a straight edge.
Right edge.
Yeah.
You said left, right edge.
Oh, okay, sorry, right edge. Yeah, you're just making a straight edge on those two. Kind of at a 90-degree angle to each other. Okay, so now the next step is our dreaded partial seam, which is not dreaded, it's super easy. So Shelly has her 5 pieces left, which is her focus in the middle and the 4 rectangles. And as you can see, you put the first rectangle here. This is the standard order position, like in here. And then the next one, that corner, you just turn it, and it fits.
Right.
Now, it doesn't matter which one of these you start with, but you're going to take one of these blocks that's in this standard position, and you're going to take and flip, and say I'm taking this one right here, and I just flipped it down over top, okay? All we want you to do, your partial seam, is you're going to sew this from this corner in about halfway across the block. It's not an exact measurement, it's just enough to get it connected, but to leave you enough to finish sewing the others. So you're going to sew this seam. And once that's sewn, it's going to be, now it's attached like this on here, and you have this next block, and that fits exactly. You're going to match that corner. Well, I better use one of mine. It might look funny. So I'm going to match that top corner to there, match that, sew that on. Between each sewing, you're going to press it out, and now I have a new corner. And I take the next one, and I sew it on, and I press it. And then I flip it up, I have this one to sew on. I might have that turned. I'm going to sew this last seam on, and then I've got this partial part open, and I just finish sewing that seam. And it's basically sewing the last block to this along this seam. So we want you to do all of that, and we'll come back with our finished blocks. That's it.
More or less finished.
More or less finished. I mean, partial seam is not, it's just to allow you to get in this weird centerpiece.
Right.
And it's only tricky when it's a tiny centerpiece.
Yeah.
Our block is big, so we're good.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone. We're back. Okay, so we have a finished block. Mine is trimmed. Shelly's not. She's going to show you. Depending on the width of your strips, you know, that makes it easier to make it fit. I mean, if you do the math, we have 2 5-inch rectangles and a 3 3/4 inch square in the center.
Right.
And so everything, you should have plenty of extra. But I'll admit, on mine, I had a little difficulty on this. And I think it's because my strip B is my narrowest strip. So if you haven't started sewing, and to be honest, up until the point where you even put on that C strip, or even at the end, almost, you can change which is which.
That's true.
I would make if you have a choice between these 2 strips, have the wider one be this B strip. You really need, I had trouble, as you can see, my corner even went away here. You need a definite corner here, and you're not going to get that if your strip is very narrow. So, I mean, it will work. I had to take and move a strip over a little bit on this, and then it was plenty big. I mean, there's plenty of fabric there, and so you might have to move a corner unit over a little bit if it comes up a little short, but that's all you need to do to fix it. But definitely before you sew together your 4 rectangles onto that square, make sure that they're 5 inches across at least on the long direction. They're 5 inches up and down. They're probably going to be like 8 inches, something like that, the other way, which is plenty. But you need the 5 inches this direction. And if they're not, then make adjustments then. Don't keep sewing. Otherwise, it goes fine. We've made now like 10 of these blocks almost. and we do try to keep it a little bit loosey-goosey for you guys to make your own choices. But if you go to that 1.5 inch strip on the B strip, that seems to maybe not give you a definite corner, and then when you're sewing it on, it's hard to keep that corner and sew that piece on. So yeah, okay. Enough said about that. It looks great, and having that a little bit different doesn't even matter. Yeah. I mean, really, until you sew that C strip on, almost, you could even, or make that cut for the 5 inches. You could switch the two. You can, true. Yeah, just so make the wider one be the B strip. Okay. All right. So we're going to continue on this star improv escapade. I mean, we definitely are running into some challenges because, you know, stars are made stars by their points, but improv and points don't go together so well. Yep. But so we're struggling through this. We will get 12 blocks in this year. All right. See you next month.